Hello YouTubers and NFL fans everywhere. This is Matt, the NFL Fanatic, with my Week 2 2015 NFL predictions. Well, you may be thinking, this is odd, I'm recording a video on a Monday. And again, you still have to wait for the Monday night games. But last year, for anybody that were my previous subscribers realized that I did do a couple Monday videos to end the year. I just thought that would be different from a lot of the other NFL YouTube prognosticators to give a lot of instant feedback and instant picks even before the week ended. So for all my viewers out there, subscribers, just people watching, give me feedback on this idea because I think it's a different idea. It makes me a little bit different than most prognosticators usually wait till the end of the week and do their videos from Tuesday and now until about Week 16 Thursday to do their videos. So yeah, just again, if you guys like the Monday videos and like the instant stuff, just give me a like or a good comment. If you don't, please let me know and I will do the videos on Tuesday or Wednesday. And again, I am taking a little bit of a risk myself and not, especially this week, not looking at the 2 Monday night games. But overall this week so far, I am 10-4, which is pretty decent. And again, for everybody out there, for the games tonight, just for a quick reminder, I am taking the Philadelphia Eagles and the Minnesota Vikings to beat the Atlanta Falcons and San Francisco 49ers, respectively. So, I'm happy with a 10-win week. If I can get the last 2 wins, go 12-4, that's a really good week to start out the year, and I hope I can continue to build the momentum into the next week. But what a crazy, first NFL weekend. All the typical shenanigans of highs and lows, upsets, and big surprises. I'll go through a quick of these here for a recap. The Indianapolis-Buffalo game, what a tremendous job by Rex Ryan. That defense it shut down Frank Gore in his running. I think he only had about 30 yards rushing in the game. T.Y. Hilton only had 85 yards, even though, again, he did injure his knee and was out for the rest of the game. Andrew Luck only threw for about 230 yards, and he had 2 TDs and 2 picks. And it just seemed like there was a different vibe in Buffalo, and I have to give Rex a lot of credit in building this identity. And Tyrod Taylor did a lot better than I thought, or he played better than Luck did. He was a lot more calm, he made the right throws, he made a great bomb to Percy Harvin for a 56-yard touchdown, and I was incredibly impressed by that. And I think Buffalo, right now, should be a wild card team if they can keep this up. And I know for the New England Patriots, that's going to be a very tough test next week when they go to Buffalo, because I know that Rex Ryan has always had a consistent history of making Tom Brady play very difficult in his games, but I am looking forward to that. And then some other quick highlights. Kudos to the Rams for beating the Seahawks. What an upset that was. I definitely realize this. I think every person would agree with this. Cam Chancellor hopefully will get paid today because they desperately missed him. They gave up 34 points in the first week of the year, and I do think a majority of that was without Cam. And the game-winning touchdown, ironically, was against the backup safety that Cam was replacing Cam and Deion Bailey to get the tie. And also, I think Pete Carroll made a pretty boneheaded decision by going for an onside kick right to begin overtime. That's not something that you would want to do. Again, it rarely works. And again, even in the Super Bowl 44 with Sean Payton, if he didn't get that onside kick, the Colts probably would have won the Super Bowl. But kudos to the Rams, though. They were really getting aggressive. They were really aggressive. They got a bunch of pressure on Wilson. I think he got sacked about 3 or 4 times. He threw a horrible interception that changed momentum. And every one of their weapons looked a lot more efficient. And kudos to Nick Foles for playing as well as he did, even though he had a couple gaffes himself, the 2 fumbles. But it is the Seahawks defense, so I can respect that. And then, let's see, Mariota and Winston, that was a unique game. Both of them, it was kind of like the tale of 2 games. I definitely saw a lot more progression, a lot more poise, and Marcus Mariota clearly outplayed the Bucs, and I kind of feel a bit embarrassed by taking the Bucs. Even though, again, Mike Evans did not play, but I don't think that would have changed the outcome, because Mariota and that offense just seemed extremely efficient. Even though Mariota, again, his performance is I think, a little slighted, because, again, a lot of it was a lot of Oregon-type plays. It wasn't, Mariota didn't really impress with his arms, and there was a lot of yak. But again, you know, when you compare it to Winston, who his first throw was a pick six, you know, again, the last time a guy did that was Brett Favre. So again, Winston could hope he's Brett Favre. I'm not saying he is, but I do believe that Mariota looked a lot more efficient, and he looks like a stable guy that franchise can have, and maybe the first legitimate franchise guy, the first franchise guy they had since they thought they had Vince Young, and maybe the first legitimate franchise guy they had since Steve Young back in the early 90s. I'll get through the rest of the games and my thoughts as I go on through my picks. But here are my picks for Week 2. Alright, so this Thursday, when the 1-0 Denver Broncos go to the 1-0 Kansas City Chiefs, I am taking the Denver Broncos. And then on Sunday, when the 0-1 Detroit Lions go to the Minnesota Vikings, I am taking the Minnesota Vikings. When the 0-1 Chicago Bears host the 1-0 Arizona Cardinals, I am taking the Arizona Cardinals. When the 0-1 Cleveland Browns go to the 1-0 Tennessee Titans, I am taking the Tennessee Titans. When the 1-0 New England Patriots go to the 1-0 Buffalo Bills, I am taking the New England Patriots. When the 0-1 Houston Texans go to the 1-0 Carolina Panthers, I am taking the Carolina Panthers. When the San Francisco 49ers go to the 0-1 Pittsburgh Steelers, I am taking the Pittsburgh Steelers. When the 1-0 San Diego Chargers go to the 1-0 Cincinnati Bengals, I am taking the Cincinnati Bengals. When the 1-0 St. Louis Rams go to the 0-1 Washington Redskins, I am taking the St. Louis Rams. When the Atlanta Falcons go to the 0-1 New York Giants, I am taking the New York Giants. When the 0-1 Tampa Bay Buccaneers go to the 0-1 New Orleans Saints, I am taking the New Orleans Saints. When the 0-1 Baltimore Ravens go to the 0-1 Oakland Raiders, I am taking the Baltimore Ravens. When the 0-1 when the 1-0 Miami Dolphins, go to the 0-1 Jacksonville Jaguars, I am taking the Miami Dolphins. When the 1-0 Dallas Cowboys go to the Philadelphia Eagles, I'm taking the Philadelphia Eagles. When the 0-1 Seattle Seahawks go to the 1-0 Green Bay Packers, I'm taking the Green Bay Packers. And then in the Monday night game, when the 1-0 New York Jets go to the 0-1 Indianapolis Colts, I am taking the Indianapolis Colts. Alright, Denver at Kansas City. Both teams yesterday had their ups and downs. Kansas City looked incredibly efficient. Alex Smith, he threw 3 touchdowns, 233 yards. Decent game. They still haven't thrown a touchdown to a wide receiver since Week 16 of 2013. Unbelievable that still hasn't happened. But when I looked at how they played against Houston, it was just a clear mismatch. Ryan Hoyer's first pass to Houston Texans was a pick to the rookie Marcus Peters. What a great representation by Hoyer, though, who got pulled for Ryan Mallett, but I'll get to that. I'll talk about the Texans when I talk about the Texans-Panthers game. But Kansas City looked really good. They got 5 sacks. And it was a very good game all around. Denver, on the other hand, it definitely was a different story. For the first time in 49 games, where as a Denver Bronco, Peyton Manning did not score an offensive touchdown. The Broncos did not score an offensive touchdown, but they still beat the Ravens 19-13. That was a bit frustrating for me as a Ravens fan. Flacco threw that pick 6, and he just basically Talib eyed him up. But again, hey, that's Flacco's fault there. But overall, it wasn't really that impressive performance. I think Manning went 21 of 40, 175 yards and a pick. So I could really see, especially with how much pressure we got, and how limited Manning's arm was, because he really could not throw the deep ball as he could. I could see Kansas City getting a lot of pressure on Peyton Manning and causing this game to be another low-scoring, tight game. But when I look at this, it's kind of a similar matchup, even though, again, Kansas City obviously has a huge edge of running game, and the offensive lines, you could argue, are about a crapshoot, but right now I think you might have to give Casey a little bit of an edge. I just feel, again, that Peyton Manning in his whole career, Indianapolis and Denver, he's never lost to the Chiefs as a Denver Bronco, and he's only lost 1 time overall to the Kansas City Chiefs in his career. I think that was November 30th, 2004. And when I just look at this game, it's something where if Manning isn't as efficient, if Manning isn't as high as Manning is, I think he can play just as well as Alex Smith at his highest point. And that makes sense. A dumbed down Manning or a hurt Manning is about just as good as Alex Smith to me at his best. Again, Alex Smith had a couple of nice deep throws, especially one to Jerry Maclin that got overturned. But at the end of the day, when I look at these two teams, could Kansas City win this game? Yeah, they could. They're going to be at the loudest stadium in the NFL at Arrowhead. They're motivated, and they have a lot more efficient weapons. They looked a lot more efficient in all phases of the game than Denver did. But at the end of the day, when I look at Manning and Smith, I have to give Peyton the edge just because it's hard for me to go against that stat of he's never lost to KC. And even with the weapons they had, even though, again, Thomas isn't there and Welker's not there, which they had over the last couple years, I do believe the Broncos will win this game because I think Manning and that defense can cause one more turnover to give Manning one more shot to drive down the field to get the victory. It should be a great game. Great AFC West rivalry. Should be really competitive and tight. But I'm going to take the Broncos just based on Manning over Smith. Vikings at Lions. I'm taking the Vikings because I look at this game and go, Minnesota looks very good. The defense, with Mike Zimmer, has a lot of good core talent around them. They're going to need a lot of pieces back. Anthony Barr. They still have Harrison Smith. They got Newman. They have Robinson. They have a really good core defense, and they're going to get Adrian Peterson back. And I feel that Teddy Bridgewater is going to continue to elevate his play and rise with the talent that he has around him. With a Mike Wallace added, and you have a Cordero Patterson who can maybe somewhat, hopefully, can get back to that first round pick status. And I think Adrian Peterson, of course, will give him a lot of balance they didn't have last year. And I just watched that Lions and Chargers game the other day, and I was incredibly disappointed by Matthew Stafford. That team had a 21-10 lead going into the half. And they were, through the first, for the majority of the first half, they were dominating the Chargers. Amir Abdullah had a 26-yard touchdown run, which was really impressive. And then Phillip Rivers threw a pick six. And the Lions, I thought, were just going to be able to steamroll their way to a victory. But then as I watched the game unfold, Matthew Stafford became an accident waiting to happen. He threw 3 interceptions in the game. I think it was 2. Two. I'm sorry, because one got overturned at the end of the game. But it was just like Stafford at the end of the day really could not do anything. Calvin really didn't have that big of an impact. I thought he would have a much bigger impact on the game than with San Diego's corners. But I just really wasn't that impressed. And I saw what San Diego's offense could do. And they put up 33 points. And I think Minnesota's offense, kind of different with the running game, can do the same thing. I feel that Stafford, with this defense, can cause enough mistakes that they can... the Vikings can win this game because they'll be able to control the clock with Peterson. They have to respect Peterson. And I'm just not as sold on the Lions now than I was before just as the season started. I think this game, it's kind of like the Broncos-Chiefs game, another really good game of evenly matched teams. One's kind of riding on last year's potential and is a little underperforming, and one team I think will overperform. But I'm going to go with the Vikings on this one because I think they'll be able to control the clock and get the ball out of Stafford's hands. And even when Stafford has the ball in his hands, just from what I saw out of San Diego, he will throw some interceptions or he will generate some turnovers for the Vikings, which will only help the Vikings be able to win the game. So, again, that's why I'm taking the Vikings to beat the Lions. Cardinals over Bears. I'm taking the Cardinals just because Arizona had a really solid game all around. New Orleans was a good fight. The game was pretty much a competitive back and forth. It wasn't fighting for a pick six by Peterson to seal the game. And I just feel that Arizona has a better secondary and a better overall defense than what Green Bay had. And Green Bay, you know, for the most part, last week or yesterday, they were just able to, at the end of the day, get Cutler to make that one mistake. Because Jay Cutler, for the most part, played one of the better games he's played in a long time. Okay, you know, again, I know he threw that last interception, and I think he's thrown an interception every single game he's played against the Packers. But I look at Arizona and Chicago and say that Palmer and his weapons, even though Fitzgerald went down at the end there, even though I hope he's okay, you know, he seemed like he was able to walk fine. Palmer has a lot more weapons to work with. You know, Andre Ellington did get carted off of his knee, and of course Chicago has the huge advantage at run game. I just feel that Arizona's defense can shut down the Bears' offense even more than what the Packers did. I just think Palmer has a better sense than what Cutler does, and Cutler may be able to pull another, you know, solid game. But at the end of the day, I just don't think, just like the Packers game, it won't be enough to beat this Cardinals team. Because I think Peterson can get Jeffrey one-on-one. Tyron and Powers can do enough at safeties to get their slot receivers and tight ends in check. And the Cardinals just have more talent and a better arsenal of weapons to go into Chicago and do exactly what the Packers did. I was impressed by Cutler and Gase's offense, but I just don't think with that defense, Cutler will make one mistake, or he will not make one more play they need to win the game, and that's why I'm taking the Arizona Cardinals to win this game, just because Arizona has more talent. They have a great defense behind them to offset the Bears' weapons, and I just think with Brown and Nelson and Floyd, they have too much speed and size for the Chicago secondary to handle, especially when you give James Jones in his first game back as Packer in about 2 years, 2 touchdowns, and they were pretty easy touchdowns. I think Floyd, Fitzgerald, Brown, and Nelson could do just as much damage on that secondary as Green Bay did. So that's why I'm taking Arizona to beat Chicago. Tennessee over Cleveland. I think it's just I'm kind of riding the Mariota high here. Marcus Mariota, like I said earlier, had an incredible first game. He virtually had a perfect passer rating, but apparently in the stat, you have to throw a minimum of 20 passes to get the rating. So technically, he didn't even get the perfect rating. But just watching that whole team from top to bottom, they were a lot more efficient. They made a lot of timely throws, and it just was a clear route from the beginning. And I just think Mariota will continue to get better. This is his first home game, and he's playing a Cleveland Browns team that's been hampered by injuries. Josh McCown got concussed while trying to do his best John Elway impression by doing a helicopter run into the end zone, which he fumbled, by the way. And Johnny Manziel got back in the game and Johnny Manziel then finished the game. And Manziel had his ups and downs. He threw a beautiful 58-yard touchdown to Travis Benjamin. But then at the same time, he did throw an interception. He got sacked a few times. Then again, it was his first game. Nobody thought that he was even going to have a chance to play Week 1 anyway. But when I look at Tennessee and when I look at Cleveland, I just see that Tennessee has a quarterback that knows how to work with his talent. And thankfully for Titans fans, just for any fantasy owners as well, Delaney Walker did not break his hand. But I just think Tennessee just looked a lot more efficient. They had a lot more timely throws. And Cleveland just was erratic. And I have to go with Mariota just because Tennessee's efficiency is way better than Cleveland's overall ability. Because Cleveland does have some more talented pieces on the defensive side than what Tennessee does. But just looking at how both teams played, I have to go with the Titans because they just look like they can continue to build that momentum, especially against this injured and suspended, riddled Cleveland Browns team, that they can get this win and go to 2-0 for the first time in a long time, I think, for the Titans in a while. But that's why I'm taking the Titans to beat the Browns, just because of the overall perspective of both games. I think against the Cleveland defense, Mariota can do the same kind of plays and make the same kind of impact. And I just think that Manziel or McCown, whoever starts, will not be able to be as effective due to the lack of talent they have at receiver and tight end to get this victory. That's why I'm taking the Titans to beat the Browns. New England over Buffalo. This was actually, for me, a really tough decision because I really think Buffalo can give New England, especially with Rex Ryan at the helm, like I said earlier, a very good fight. And I will tell you this, I would not be surprised at all if Buffalo will get this victory. But there's just one stat that I know that I hang my hat on about New England, especially Tom Brady against the Bills. In his career, in the 15 years that he's, about the 15 years he's played, Tom Brady is 23-3 all time against the Buffalo Bills. And one of those losses was just last year where he got benched the second half. And I think he's only lost one. I think he's only lost one time in Buffalo, and the other, one time in Buffalo, and that was 2011 when Fitzpatrick got that third one of the year on that magical 5-0 run the Bills had, which ended up going 6-10. But I just think New England, it's just hard to go against Brady in this situation. The Bills have a lot more defensive talent than the Patriots have. Because, again, D'Angelo Williams ran for over 120 yards, his most yards since 2012. If it wasn't for a few drops, Darius Hayward-Bay could have switched the game. And I just think that Buffalo, they're going, to pressure this young offensive line who had 3 rookies and 1 undrafted rookie on their line. But I just can't go against Brady. Belichick knows what he's going to do. He knows how to play against Rex Ryan. He knows how to confuse Tyrod Taylor. And Brady, is going up against a secondary that is better than Pittsburgh's. But I just think he knows what to do in this game. They have enough weapons. They're going to get LeGarrette Blount back, which would be a huge help to be a power ball or a bowling ball to go to that Bills run defense. And they have Deion Lewis, who turned to be pretty efficient, in my eyes, against the Steelers, even though he did have that fumble. And I still think that the Bills, even with this additions in the secondary they have, I don't think they'll be able to stop Rob Gronkowski. I think they'll cover Rob, unlike the Steelers did. But the Patriots, I just can't go against them in this game. And I know I said the same thing about Indy, and I was dead wrong about that because they completely whipped Indy. But Andrew Luck is a great quarterback, but he is not Tom Brady, and and the Indianapolis Colts are not the New England Patriots. So I think that Rex can win this game, and I would not be surprised if he wins this game. But I'm going to go with that 23-3 stat. They're motivated to get a win, and I think that if they can beat Buffalo, that would just be a huge confidence booster because, again, I think everybody is believing, including me, that Buffalo is their biggest competition. Buffalo has more to prove, and Buffalo would get a lot more confidence if they get this win over than New England does. But I just don't think they will, based on Belichick knows what to do against the Rex Ryan defense. Brady has enough weapons around him, or he'll have the right mindset to play this defense to make plays around him happen. And I just think Tyrod, and I'll say it again, and if the Bills win, I'll stop saying this same rhetoric about Tyrod. I just don't think he's ready to play a New England type Patriot team. I was wrong about the Colts, and if I'm wrong about the Patriots, I will stop saying that. Or even for Bills fans, they want me to keep saying that. But I'm going to take New England based on Brady, his record against them, and just Tyrod's ability to have to do more. And I think LaShawn will be held a little bit more. And I just don't think Tyrod against this Patriot team can get the job done. So that's why I'm taking the New England Patriots to beat the Bills. Carolina over Houston. Carolina played a little bit lackluster, below average type game. It actually was supposed to be 10-10 at the half, but their kicker missed the extra point. By the way, the extra point rule is already working because they've already, NFL kickers yesterday missed 4 extra points. Pretty surprising, or that's a decent number. I hope Luke Kuechly gets better. He suffered a concussion, and he could not finish the game, and I do not expect him to possibly play this weekend. But I am taking Carolina just based on the fact of how pathetic Houston was. For anybody about this topic, I have always been a Ryan Mallett supporter. Brian Hoyer had 17 games to play, And if you look at that, that's enough games for me to kind of realize what the guy can do. His first throw, as I said earlier in the video, was an interception to the rookie Marcus Peters. How bad do you have to be that your first throw is an interception? He got one decent touchdown, but then as the game went on, he just was overthrowing guys. He was getting sacked. He couldn't make any good decisions, and he ended up going 18 of 34 for about 130 yards and a touchdown and a pick. And he got so bad that Ryan Mallett had to come in. And Ryan Mallett did a lot more work in a quicker way than what Hoyer did. But so I hope Bill O'Brien gets smart enough and benches Brian Hoyer after 1 week and realizes I made the wrong decision and starts Ryan Mallett. But I still think even if Ryan Mallett does play, Carolina will get this win. Just because I think it's something where I don't know what Ryan can do against this Carolina defense. Carolina played a pretty solid defense against the Jaguars. Again, it's the Jaguars, so you really don't have to put that much stock into it. But Cam made some nice throws to Olsen and Kotchery got a touchdown, and they got a pick six. And I think Carolina will be going against better receivers. You got DeAndre Hopkins, who was the #1 fantasy player. So congrats to anybody that had Hopkins. But I look at it and go, I just think Carolina, they have a better squad, and I'm just not sold on the Houston Texans quarterback situation. And they're not going to have Arian Foster. Even though they said Arian Foster come back not this week, but next week or the week after. If they had Arian Foster, that could have balanced out everything, and I probably would have taken the Texans to win. Because Houston's defense, for the most part, did pretty well, even though Kansas City does have some more weapons, and Carolina doesn't have the offensive weapons that Kansas City has. So obviously that would have helped the Texans a lot. But they said that he probably won't play next week. So with the two lackluster running games going at it, and two defenses that are very loaded in front sevens, Houston has the edge at secondary, but I think that Hoyer and Mallett, whoever starts, I hope it's Mallett. I just don't think that against this Carolina defense, this will be only a second game. And Mallett did have some overthrows and did have some miscues. I think Cam Newton can capitalize and say that against this Houston defense, who had some huge holes, and get the victory off of that. It's because of Mallett's inexperience, or Hoyer's ability, combined with the lack of running games, that then Cam Newton and them can go into their home opener and get this win. Should be an interesting game because I think it's going to be another defensive slugfest, but Carolina should get it based on what I said. That's why I'm taking the Panthers over the Texans. Pittsburgh over San Fran. It's just offense to me. I think I'm not really sold. I think this, San Francisco and Pittsburgh, their defenses have lost a lot of talent. They have a lot of young guys on there. And if I had to just go off of what I saw, Pittsburgh had a better running game, and I think they'll be able to carry that into this week against the Niners. I think Adrian Peterson can definitely shred that defense pretty well. And I'm not saying D'Angelo Williams is Adrian Peterson, but if D'Angelo Williams can run about 123 yards against the New England defense, he definitely can do that against the Niner defense, just because of all the talent they lost. And also, I just feel that I just think Pittsburgh has more of an offensive talent. This is going to be a high-scoring offensive game to me, just because of the lack of all the talent lost on both defenses. Pittsburgh, of course, with Ike Taylor, Dick LeBeau, the coordinator, Troy Polamalu, Jason Worlds, with all that talent, but San Francisco lost way more talent than they did. I just think Pittsburgh's offense and Roethlisberger can outshoot the Niners' offense. And again, it's a bit of a risk for me to make this pick because I have to watch the Niners play. But I just still feel that even if the Niners can pull off a victory against the Vikings, it's not going to be by a lot. I think Minnesota's going to put up a fight. And I look at Pittsburgh and San Francisco, and I look at two offensive teams that are basically about the same situation. You have one big number one receiver, and then you have quality or, average or a little above average number twos. The tight ends are, reliable. The offensive line, San Francisco might have a bit of San Francisco has an edge at offensive line, and I think Pittsburgh has the edge at front seven, and the secondaries are about even. But then in that case, I go back to quarterbacks, and in this game, I'm going to take Big Ben and his offense to be able to outshoot Kaepernick and his offense. That's what it comes down to me. That's why I'm taking Pittsburgh to beat San Francisco. San Diego and Cincinnati. I'm going to take Cincinnati just because I'm going to trust Cincinnati's defense. I kind of feel like I'm playing a broken record because I said the same thing about Detroit, and that bit me in the butt. And again, Andy Dalton can have Matthew Stafford-type games. So would I be surprised if San Diego wins this game? Not at all. But I think Cincinnati will use the motivation of the 2013 wildcard game when they lost to them for the third time of their 4 straight playoff appearances. I think it was 26-10, where Dalton had no touchdown, 2 interceptions, to say that they're motivated to beat this team because they were embarrassed the last time they played each other in Cincinnati. I think that both squads looked, incredibly efficient. San Diego definitely had a great comeback against the Lions, and especially after kind of how shaky Rivers was. Even though he did throw for about 404 yards, 2 TDs, he had 2 TDs and 2 interceptions. That's overall a decent game. The picture went, kind of fall a little bit, and one was a pick six. But I just think that, again, Cincinnati just has more talent that San Diego's defense will not work with. And again, I got the same record. I think Cincinnati has the better running game. They have the better defensive front. They'll have the better secondary. And A.J. Green equals out Calvin Johnson. And they still don't have Antonio Gates, which still didn't matter, but because Ladarius Green had a nice game. But I'm just going to go with Cincinnati because I think they're going to use the motivation from the last time they played each other in Cincinnati, even though also Andy Dalton does have a win over the Mike McCoy-led Chargers in 2013 earlier in the year when they were in San Diego. And I just feel Cincinnati's defense is more disciplined and is coached by a better defensive-minded coach in Lewis, and they'll be able to make more plays and shut down Melvin Gordon. And I think Cincinnati can get through that offensive line. DJ Fluker had a knee injury and the MRIs turned out negative, which is a good thing. But I think Cincinnati has more talent. They'll be able to stop the run game more, and they'll be more motivated to beat this San Diego Charger team. It should be a great game, and like I said, I kind of feel like I'm playing the same record with Detroit. I could be dead wrong, and I would not be surprised if the Chargers win, but I'm going with the Bengals. Home field, the Bengals' motivation, and I think they just have more talent in running game, receiver, and a better defensive and secondary front than the Chargers. If I am wrong again, just like the Bills, I might have to start giving the Chargers more credit. And any Chargers fans watching videos, you can come at me, and I will give the Chargers a lot more respect. So that's why I'm taking the Bengals over the Chargers. Rams over Redskins. This was one of the easy games. St. Louis, incredibly impressive. Overall, the offense was a lot more efficient. Tavon Austin had a huge kick return. Nick Foles was making timely throws. He was making some big-time throws in clutch moments. Even though, again, he did have 2 fumbles, so, again, that's a bit of a concern, especially one that was returned for a touchdown that should have given the Seahawks the victory. But when I look at St. Louis, even if the Rams would have lost to the Seahawks, I still was going to take them over the Redskins, because last year they shut out the Redskins 24-0, and I'm just not sold on the Redskins. Deshaun Jackson left with a hamstring injury, and D'Angelo Hall left with a rib injury. And I think D'Angelo probably will be fine. Deshaun, that injury could be nagging, into the rest of the year, and he might not be as effective. And also, I'm just not sold on Kirk Cousins. Kirk Cousins, yesterday against Miami, had a decent game. But the one problem that Kirk Cousins always has had was turnovers. And he threw 2 interceptions. And one I'll give him a pass on because that was more of a great pick by Bryce McCain than actually Cousins trying to throw it, because that was just a great play. That's a very difficult play to make. But the one he threw to Grimes pretty much read his eyes, and he jumped around and got about 15 yards. And I just think, again, against this Rams defense, who got an interception on Russell Wilson, who has a front seven that can cause a lot of pressure against this young Redskins offensive line. Even though, again, the Redskins were quite shockingly were decent enough to have a decent running game against the Dolphins, which I was surprised with, especially with all the money they were paid to sue for that $100 million to stop the run. And Alfred Morris had a pretty decent game from what he's had before against this defense. So, but again, I just think St. Louis, they have a lot more offensive talent. Nick Foles doesn't make that many interceptions. Okay, because again, I guess you could say over turnovers, both are about equal. I just think Nick Foles is a better quarterback than Cousins is. The running games, Benny Cunningham did a decent job. And I just think that St. Louis has a much better defense to shut down the Redskins than the Redskins do in trying to shut down the Rams. Because if you can put up 30 points on the Seahawks, you could probably put up about 40 or 50 points on this Redskins defense. It should be a pretty easy game. But again, St. Louis, just way more defensive talent. They have the shutout victory to go off of. And I just think, again, Kirk Cousins will throw more interceptions, giving Foles more opportunities to get down the field and score. And the Redskins will not have that much of a chance. But speaking of confidence, my 3 locks for the week, I forgot to mention at the beginning of the video. One of them is St. Louis over Washington. I'm going to lock Arizona over Chicago. And I'm going to lock New England over Buffalo. So that's what I'm taking the Rams to beat the Redskins. Giants over Falcons. This is just because Atlanta, I think Matt Ryan is winless at the Meadowlands. He's 0-2. And he scored a grand total, I think they've been outscored 54-19. And I think the Giants, for the most part, were a lot more impressive than I thought they would be. And they actually really, if Eli Manning doesn't throw it on 3rd down at the 1-yard line, kind of Super Bowl-esque, and he just takes the sack or he just dives, the Giants probably could have won that game. Or it would have been a lot easier for them to win that game. But they didn't, and kudos to Eli and them for saying that that was their fault. But I just think that the Giants, they had more of a basis of the home field. And let me rephrase it. I think Atlanta's road woes will continue in New York. Like I said, Matt Ryan's never won in New York. They just played there last year and they were outscored 30-17. They lost 30-17. And the other time he was there, I think they lost 24-2, and that was the wild card game into going to the Super Bowl. Because I think the running games, New York has a bit of an edge over due to the committee. Receivers are about even. The offensive line's about even. The front sevens, I think New York and Atlanta, basically every other aspect of the teams are about even, except maybe wide receivers, you can give the edge to Atlanta, and then the cornerbacks in the secondary, you can give the edge to New York. So, but when it comes down to me, it's Eli and Ryan. And again, I hope Matt Ryan does really well, especially tonight and the rest of the year, because he's my fantasy quarterback in both my leagues. But I just think, again, Atlanta's road woes, sparked on by the Giants' motivation to get this game behind them, and also that the Giants have just all, again, they have a 2-0 record against Matt Ryan at home, and Matt Ryan is a totally different quarterback on the road. In fact, I think he only won. I think he won 3-5 on the road. I think he only went 3-5 on the road. So that really doesn't help him. And I just think the Giants, kind of like most of the other things, when you have about even teams, you go with the quarterback. And I'll take Eli Manning's performance because he really didn't have a flaw the whole night over a Matt Ryan performance, which over the last couple of years have been up and down. And I'll trust Eli in this situation than Matt Ryan. So that's what I'm taking the Giants over the Falcons. New Orleans over Tampa. I'm taking New Orleans because I just don't trust Jameis. Jameis had a rookie-type game. He made some decent throws. And he got a big touchdown, to Jenkins. I think both touchdowns were to Jenkins. And he made some good throws, but again, he threw the pick six the first play, threw another interception. He only threw for about 200 yards. And I just feel, again, against this Saints defense, especially with that young offensive line, you're playing a Rob Ryan-led defense that loves to blitz. And I think that young offensive line is going to get ripped through, and Winston's going to have a lot more pressure, and he's going up against big corners in Browner. You got possibly Jarris Bird. C.J. Spiller will be back, and I'm just not sold on Tampa's ability just yet. I think Winston's going to have another rough day. And also, again, I think Saints, they're motivated to get a 5-game losing streak at home, which they have, off their books. So, I'm taking New Orleans over Tampa just because of Jameis's performance the other week. I think he's going to continue to struggle. I'm not going to put that much money on him because, again, he's a rookie. It's only his second game. But just watching what happened to him against the Titans defense, the Saints have a few more decent weapons, and they have a defensive coordinator, Rob Ryan, that knows what to do defensively against rookie quarterbacks. And he does a pretty decent job against them. And I also think, again, the Saints are motivated. They played a pretty much overall good game against the Cardinals. They could have won the game if it wasn't for Brees' pick 6. But I think just with that momentum, I think they can beat the Tampa team, which ultimately could struggle even more, which could possibly cost Lovie Smith his job. Because, the last year he brought in Josh McCown. He brought in Josh McCown to try to be the savior. That failed miserably. And with his second year, I know he just brought in a rookie quarterback again, but I just don't know if you give Lovie, if he has another 2-win season, especially with the talent he has in receiver, in corner, and defense, I just don't think you can let him keep his job after 2 back-to-back, maybe pathetic seasons. Maybe. Again, it's only the first week. We get to see what happens. But I'm taking New Orleans. Jameis will just continue. I think will continue to have some struggles, which New Orleans will be able to capitalize on. And I think the Saints, with their home mindset, trying to get back to the home domination, I think they'll win. So that's what I'm thinking. The Saints over the Bucks. Baltimore over Oakland. I'm taking Baltimore just because I think yesterday we had a moral win over the Broncos. Earlier, in the first 49 games, the Broncos did not have an offensive touchdown, and we could have won the game. It wasn't Flacco's pick 6. Oh, and a quick little sidebar. Very disheartening to hear about Terrell Suggs' injury. Second time he's tore his Achilles in 4 years. And this one, it's the other one, so now he's going to have 2 Achilles. But I hope he gets better soon. We're going to miss him. I think I said something the other day where Suggs' injury, I think we can find a few guys, and it's kind of an old football cliche of the next man up. We can maybe find some guys that can fill the role of Suggs playing, but we can't fill the void of his emotional leadership. Because there's really nobody else there that has the pulse of that team that's been there as that long veteran. And again, it took Suggs a long time to get that leadership role because of the Lewis and Reed factors. Those 2 guys were there before him, and they took the leadership role while Suggs was always kind of the third wheel. Now he is the leader of that team, and it's a big loss. But when I look at this game, I hopefully Perryman can play. But I just think if our defense can play that well against the Broncos and Peyton Manning, just imagine what we can do with the Raiders, who very disappointingly played like the Raiders. My God, they were down 24-0 at the half. And I know Derek Carr got hurt, and I hope he gets better. But Matt McGloin did not really help in cause either. So, just with that, with the Raiders' lack of talent, or just, if Matt McGloin's playing, I'm not really concerned about Matt McGloin. Charles Woodson got hurt. And I'm just not really sold on the Raiders. If they beat us, we have some huge problems. Because they can't look that bad against Cincinnati and then beat us. Well, we just look that good against Denver. Because then I'll start questioning, who are the real Baltimore Ravens? Which probably is a very valid question to ask. But again, I think Baltimore, they have a lot of momentum. They're going to use this as a way to just move on forward and play this Raider team, who was incredibly disappointing. If Carr doesn't play, or even if Carr plays, I think that our secondary, they can shut down, or they can maintain Amari Cooper. If they double-team him, you pretty much have the Raiders' offense figured out. And I think we'll get this win. And the last time we were in Oakland, we won. That was 2009 when we got in the playoffs with that win. So we have a little bit of history of beating the Raiders, pretty consistently. And I just think we have just too much talent for the Raiders to overcome, even with the talent the Raiders they thought they had. So that's why I'm taking the Ravens to beat the Raiders. Miami over Jacksonville. Pretty simple. Jacksonville's still Jacksonville. Jacksonville put up a heck of a fight through the first half, but then as you kind of saw, Jacksonville turned into Jacksonville. Bortles only threw for about 183 yards and a pick 6. He had a pick 6. T.J. Yeldon really couldn't do anything. And they just really didn't have enough offensive weapons to go against the Panthers. And you're playing a Miami team who had their holes, but they just have way more talent. If they could have held on to beat the Redskins and held them to 10 points, they could do the same thing with the Jaguars. And that's what it comes down to me. I think Miami's playing another kind of cupcake game. They have enough of a defense to shut down T.J. Yeldon and force Bortles to throw a pick six, which he did last year, by the way, to Louis Thomas, who was out for the year by torn ACL. But again, it's just kind of another Baltimore-Oakland type game. I think Miami just has way too much talent on receivers, the running game, the line. They're just a more talented team than the Jacksonville Jaguars are right now, and I'm going to take that as my sole reason in taking the Dolphins to beat the Jaguars. Dallas and Philadelphia. Philadelphia will win this game because of Dez Bryant's injury. Sorry guys, my nose is getting a little stuffed up again. My window's open, but I'm going to take Philadelphia to beat Dallas just because of one major injury. Dez Bryant broke a bone in his foot last night, and he will be out 4 to 6 weeks. And with no Dez Bryant, I just think with how much that offense struggled, they only got about 88 yards on the ground combined as a committee, along with Tony Romo throwing 2 interceptions. I just don't think, even though again Dallas does have the edge because they've beaten Philadelphia 5 of the last 7 times on the road, and they've won their last 9 road games. I just think Philadelphia will have more talent to work with, and I think that they're going to have the edge of running game, and they're going to have enough receivers to counteract that. And also, I just think that the Philadelphia defense is better than Dallas's right now. I think Philadelphia, with what they have defensively, and again, you'll have to see tonight, especially with Atlanta, that's going to be a great test right off the bat. But I think Philadelphia at home, they're motivated from what happened last year in Philadelphia, the Bradley Fletcher game, which nobody wants to talk about. Even though, again, we'll sign up for Bradley Fletcher, he did pretty well against, he did pretty well in New England, you know. He held his own, even though he did give up that bomb to Darius Hayward-Bay. But Philadelphia, I just feel, again, the defense is going to be able to do better, and the offenses are going to be about even on talent. I think Philadelphia's defense can get Romo to make 1 or 2 mistakes again, and I think that the Philadelphia will be able to capitalize, unlike the Giants would. And I think that the Eagles will make smarter decisions than the Giants would to get this victory. Could Dallas win this game? Yeah, they could. Of course, because Tony Romo is better than Sam Bradford. I think Tony, he definitely compensated last night without Bryant. But going against this Philadelphia team who's motivated, who want to prove to Dallas that the Thanksgiving game was more the way they played against the Cowboys than the Week 15 game. I think Philadelphia has this just based on the defense and Dez Bryant not being there. If Dez was there, I would have taken Dallas easily. But without Dez there, Terrence on Maxwell, the receivers cancel out. They have edge of running game and defense and secondary. And I'm going to take that to my bank in this game and give the Eagles their first win in the last 3 years over the Cowboys in Philly. And they'll be able to go to 2-0, and the Cowboys drop to 1-1. So, again, biggest reason, Dez not there, means no win for Cowboys against this Eagle team. That's what I'm taking the Eagles over the Cowboys. Green Bay over Seattle. Basically, it's Cam. I don't believe they're going to bring Cam Chancellor back. They should, like I said earlier in the video. Cam Chancellor would have made a huge difference, and I think they would have won the game if Cam was there. But just knowing how much they gave up against the Rams, and I know Green Bay's offense doesn't maybe have. Green Bay has enough weapons to oversee St. Louis's weapons, and they're going to be at Lambeau, where Rodgers was undefeated. He hasn't thrown an interception in Lambeau in about 3 years. And even if they had Cam, I'm just not sold on the Seahawks as a road team. They are dominant at home. But I think they said this. Russell Wilson's like 24-2 at home, and he's like 11-11 now on the road. So you definitely see a huge difference now they play. Do I think that Green Bay can get the pass rush St. Louis did? No. But do they have enough talent offensively that they can, get the Seahawks off guard? Yes, they can. I think also they can run the ball pretty effectively with Lacey. Lacey and Lynch, Lynch is better, but they kind of equal out enough to be different. But I think at the end of the day, with Cam not there, and with Green Bay at home, Green Bay can outshoot Seattle in this game. That's what I feel like. Green Bay with their offense, with how lackluster and slow the Seahawks secondary looked the other day, Green Bay has enough talent to win this game in a shootout to finally beat the Seahawks and give Aaron Rodgers his first win over Russell Wilson. Again, this is a marquee game. I'm excited. This is a rematch of the NFC title game, and it's the first time the Packers have been able to host a game at Lambeau in the Russell Wilson, Pete Carroll era. And if Seattle wins, that'd be a huge confidence booster over Green Bay. And again, you could argue both sides. Cam wasn't there, that's why the Packers won. Jordy wasn't there, that's why the Seahawks won. But at the end of the day, I'm going to take Green Bay. They're at home, and I just wasn't convinced enough in Seattle to play this Packer team, even without Jordy Nelson, with last week. If they were able to beat the Rams, I would have said, I would have probably taken Seattle because they would have had some momentum. But without Cam there, they're going to give up more points. This offense is too high powered to do that. And if you give me an offensive shootout with the weapons they had, give me Green Bay over Seattle any day, especially at Lambeau. That's why I'm taking the Packers over the Seahawks. And lastly, Colts over Jets. I think the Colts I'll put it this way. They have Ryan Fitzpatrick at their quarterback. And Fitzpatrick that game. He had some decent throws, but also he had some horrible interceptions. Tyrod Taylor did not throw an interception. I think that'll be the difference. Ryan Fitzpatrick will cause a couple turnovers to give Andrew Luck the ball back. And that'll be the difference in the game. I think that, again, the New York Jets defense is just as good as the Bills defense, even if they have their edge in the secondary. So T.Y. Hilton, Andre Johnson, Moncrief, Dorsett, they're going to have a tougher time against this secondary than they did with the Bills. But I think Fitzpatrick will have a couple turnovers to give Indy chances to win this game. And also, I'm just taking on Andrew Luck in Indy. I think this Indy team is really good. They played a Buffalo team that had a lot of an unproven quarterback and Rex Ryan-led defense. Rex Ryan isn't Todd Bowles, or Todd Bowles isn't Rex Ryan, and Fitzpatrick isn't Tyrod Taylor. And I think that Indy in their home opener, again, and Andrew Luck, this is kind of similar. Monday night game last year, we're 0-1. They lost to Denver on the road, and they lost to the Eagles this week. So again, I just don't think that they're not going to have the Colts start out 0-2 back-to-back weeks, because back-to-back years. And also, I think that'd just be a huge sign if Indy couldn't beat the Jets, because you let Tyrod Taylor and Fitzpatrick be able to do enough of defense. Any defense like Baltimore's or even Denver's, maybe even New England's, you're going to even lose more because you have a better quarterback at the helm and better talent in some ways. So again, I'm taking the Colts based on I just believe in Andrew Luck enough to say that he'll be able to this team will be able to right themselves enough to get this win. And I just think, again, Fitzpatrick will have a turnover or two, which will give the Colts more opportunities to possess the ball and win the game. And they're at home. So that's it. So that's my thoughts for all the picks this week. Like, comment, rate, subscribe. Again, anybody that thinks about this Monday video, give me a quick comment. Tell me if you like it, if you don't like it. And yeah, so that's it. So until next week, good luck to all players, all coaches, all teams, all fantasy owners, all prognosticators. Good luck to my fellow prognosticators in my Facebook group, the NFL YouTube Prognosticators. And that's it. So until next week, this is Matthew Fanatic signing off. Till then, so long.